This evening's meeting will be held via video or audio conference. May I have a roll call, please? Shanisha.
Mr. Belstria,
Present.
Mr. DeJohn,
Here.
Mrs. Finney,
Here.
Mr. Mano,
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Here.
Mrs. Snyder,
Here.
Mrs. Teresi.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's all right.
Next this evening is the approval of the minutes from our council meeting, January 25th, 2021. I hope everyone has had time to read the minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move, Finney.
Moved by Mrs. Finney, second
Teresi.
by Mrs. Tressi. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to those minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The meeting minutes have been approved. Next on the agenda are correspondence and announcements. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements? Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Chagrin River Watershed Partnership will meet via Zoom at 4 p.m. on February 25th.
Thank you. Are there any other announcements from council? Next are reports of the officer, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, everyone. A quick announcement from Chief Bittner. They have found some lock it or lose it signs that they're going to post around the city in light of the break-ins that we've had around the city for cars that are in driveways. It's just a reminder that lock your car when it's in your driveway. A lot of these are crimes of opportunity. They just go from car to car and are able to just get inside the car and steal whatever change is inside of it or whatever they can get their hands on. So these signs are going to be posted on some of the streets, and they're going to be moved around. It's just going to kind of be a reminder to the residents that you're better safe than sorry, and lock up your car when it's in your driveway. The service department has been busy during the winter, repairing potholes, trimming trees, and repairing mailboxes. On a side note, A&S Animal Control is working very well for the city. As you recall, we contracted with them to do our animal control, and so far, so good. They've been doing a great job. And the new weekly recycling program is also providing great service to our residents. So we've been hearing good news about that. Chief Elliott reported that half our firefighters have been vaccinated with both doses of the vaccine. Firefighter paramedics are included in the 1A healthcare provider group to receive the vaccine. The state of Ohio offered provisions to EMS paramedics to assist with inoculations during the public health emergency. Chief Elliott and staff members assisted the County Board of Health in inoculating healthcare providers. So thanks to the chief and to all of his guys who went above and beyond, as they usually do, to protect us and our residents. Each year, the Heritage Home Program sends postcards and letters to eligible homes in participating communities. This year, the mailing will begin mid-March through mid-May. With all the information sessions planned as virtual events, the cards and letters will have a variety of dates for homeowners to join and learn about Heritage Home Program. And the city focus, State of the City, will be in mailboxes soon. This year's edition includes the 2020 year in review from each department's perspective and a highlighted department goal for 2021. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Are there any questions for Mr. Murphy? Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan.
I also have no report this evening.
Questions for Mrs. Fagan? Next on our agenda are reports of committees, commissions, and boards, starting with the Building Committee, Mrs. Teresi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Teresi. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee did not meet, therefore I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Balestrea. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Finney.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Finney. At this time, I wanted to have you make a meeting for ordinances 3, 4, 5, and 9. They're on tonight's agenda, and if you can schedule that meeting, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you. Public Works and Service, Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. Sorry, I don't have any report tonight. The committee did not meet.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have no report tonight.
Thank you. Safety and Transportation, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. No report.
Okay, Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
The Board of Zoning Appeals will meet here tomorrow in council chambers at 7 p.m. There are several items on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. And Planning Commission, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, the Planning Commission did not meet, therefore I have no report.
Thank you. We will now move to comments from the public. Due to COVID-19 crisis, the state of Ohio has established guidelines for public gatherings. In an effort to keep residents, all members of the public, council representatives, and other city employees safe during this time, the city of Mayfield Heights has closed the city council meetings to public attendance. Because public participation and transparency are important values of the city, residents are invited to call in and listen to the meeting via audio. Additionally, questions and/or comments may be submitted to council office by noon, Monday, February 8th, by emailing Karen Fagan. Mrs. Fagan did not have any correspondence today, so we will move to resolutions, beginning with 2021-01, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Resolution 2021-01, a resolution awarding a contract to RMH Concrete and Foundations, Inc. for the Marcel Road Underpass Improvements Project in accordance with the bid specifications and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Finney. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi.
Yes.
Mrs. Finney.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. DeJohn, second by Mrs. Finney. All members of council should have received the agenda summary. This resolution awards a contract for a Marcel Road underpass and pedestrian improvement project. This is one of the recommendations from the TLCI study to make the city more pedestrian accessible.
Is now in the conference.
I believe we saw the drawings when we went out for the grant. The grant was awarded to us and the bids came in. I believe everybody should have received that today via email. They came in at $249,000. The city's cost will be about $100,000. Are there any further questions?
Madam Chairman, Teresi.
Mrs. Tressi.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Did we have to get, or did we get ODOT's approval to do this work under that bridge? Because isn't it a state bridge?
Mr. Gerson, are you with us this evening?
I am. Hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. We have submitted the plans to ODOT for approval. We are waiting on permitting, so we would not start the project until we have the permit in hand from ODOT if we need it. So we haven't received response back as to whether we need the permit, but they have been submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Gerson.
Any further questions? Mr. DeJohn?
No questions, but I did talk with Mr. Gerson today, and we did receive that $150,000 grant. We do have to spend that by March 31st, and there will be some additional cost of about $20,000 for design and about another $15,000 for hourly inspection. So the project will come in probably closer to $285,000 to $295,000 with the city getting $150,000 grant. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Any further questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2021-1 has been approved. Moving to ordinances this evening, we have received a few memos from our law director with proposed changes to a few of the ordinances. I am recommending that we place these on first and second readings, as well as send these to the legislative committee, which I already asked Mrs. Finney to go ahead and schedule. We'll start with ordinance number 2021-3. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-03, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Counsel, Rules of Debate, by amending Section 121.02J. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this on for second reading?
Move,
Move.
Mano.
Moved by Mr. Mano, second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to place 2021-3 on second reading.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
No.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
No.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance 2021-3 have been placed on second reading. Ordinance number 2021-4. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-04, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Council, Committees, by amending Section 121.02L. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this on second reading?
Teresi, yes.
Moved by Mrs. Tressi, second by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion to place this on second reading.
Mr. Belstria,
No.
Mrs. Teresi, Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
No.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Resolution 2021-4 has been placed on second reading. Ordinance number 2021-05. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-05, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Council, Reintroduction, by enacting Section 121.02V. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place 2021-5 on second reading?
So moved.
Teresi,
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mrs. Tressi. Roll call on the motion.
Mrs. Finney,
No.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
No.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance number 2021-5 has been placed on second reading. Ordinance number 2021-06. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-06, an ordinance amending the zone map of the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, so as to rezone the property known as 6200 Mayfield Road Mayfield Heights, Ohio, Cuyahoga County permanent parcel numbers 863-05-059 and 863-07-133 from the current U4 Local Retail and Wholesale District to U5 Automotive District in the city of Mayfield Heights and declaring an emergency. Second reading.
Is there a motion to place this on second reading?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. DeJohn. Roll call on the motion.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes?
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes. Ordinance number 2021-6 has been placed on second reading. Moving to ordinance number 2021-09, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-09, an ordinance amending Chapter 121 of the codified ordinances of the city titled Counsel by amending Section 121.01 regarding term of council. First reading.
Is there a motion to place this on first reading?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to place ordinance 2109 on first reading.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes?
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
No.
Ms. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance 2021-9 has been placed on first reading. Ordinance number 2021-10, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-10, an ordinance authorizing all actions necessary to continue to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, energized community grants and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Move Finney.
Moved by Mrs. Finney, second by Mr. Belstria.
Teresi.
Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move Finney.
Moved by Mrs. Finney, second by Mr. Belstria. The city is a member of NOPEC, and we are eligible to receive grants for 2021. This ordinance is to authorize us to continue grants for this year. Mayor, is there anything else you would like to add? Any questions from council? Roll call on the motion to adopt.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta, Mrs. Finney,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance 2021-10 has been approved. Ordinance number 2021-11, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-11, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $1,500,000 of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying costs of improving streets and roads in the city by reconstructing, resurfacing, grading, draining, curbing, paving, constructing storm sewers and related drainage facilities, and making other improvements as designated in the plans approved or to be improved by council, together with the necessary related improvements and appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by
Finney.
Mr. DeJohn, second by Mr. Belstria. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes?
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Finney,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Move
Moved by
Teresi.
Mr. Belstria, second by Mrs. Tressi. This was a recommendation from the Director of Finance, Mrs. Fagan, in order to authorize the sale of the notes for the purpose of paying costs of improving our streets, roads, storm sewers, and other city improvements. It is requested that council pass this legislation so we can continue to participate in a program offered by the Treasurer of the State of Ohio. The program helps us with an underlying credit rating in the notes and opens up the market of potential note buyers. Is there anything further, Mrs. Fagan?
No, I think you summed it up very well. Thank you.
Any questions from council? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Finney,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Belstria,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Ordinance 2021-11 has now been adopted.
Thank you, council.
Moving to motions, there are no motions this evening. And new business from council? Comments from council? No? Anybody? I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, second by Mr. DeJohn. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, everyone. We are now adjourned.